Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're studying our next lecture dedicated to issues of right to life and reproductive medicine. Welcome. Well, reproductive medicine is a branch of medicine which is aimed at the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases of reproductive organs. Means various forms of male and female infertility. Reproductive medicine is based on knowledge of reproductive anatomy, physiology, endocrinology, including relevant aspects of molecular biology, pathology, and biochemistry. The use of reproductive technologies in the 21st century is massive and occurs against the backdrop of fundamental changes in the moral assessment and legal state. Artificial abortion, contraception, various reproductive technologies are modern forms of medical intervention in the process of human reproduction. And its at the same time, some of them serve to limit the birth rates, like abortion and contraception. Others contribute to the birth rates, methods of artificial insemination. The problem of legal state of the embryo. One of the most important issues of the modern national and international law is the question of legal state of the embryo. The embryo, from Greek word embryon, is commonly understood as an animal organism at an early stage of development. In perinatal development, three stages are distinguished. Proembryo, this is about 14 days from the moment of conception, which is a so-called clot of cells. The actual embryo, it's from 8 weeks from the moment of conception. And fetus, approximately from 8 weeks to birth. There are two main approaches to the problem of the legal state of the embryo. The first one is an embryo is a subject of law, being a full participant in legal relations equated to a person. Embryo is an object of law. This is the second main approach. Because an embryo is a part of the mother's body, equated to human organs and tissues, or embryo as a thing about which legal relations of the property nature may arise. Considering the first point of view, it should be borne in mind that speaking of the person as a participant in legal relations, one should not forget the utility of his biological and personal state. A person is being the moral values and is able to independently choose goals, take responsibilities. In other words, the presence of legal personality that a human embryo does not have. Therefore, a fetus is not a human person and not an individual, and therefore is not recognized as legally capable. An international legal act, the principle is fixed. Every person, that he is, has the right to recognition of his legal personality, and not the provision of the right of the embryo to recognition of its legal personality. Original international documents have almost identical content. The exception is the American Convention of Human Rights at Article 4, which states, this right means the right to the light is protected by the law as a rule from the moment of conception. In this case, in relation to one of the human rights, one can speak of the different moment of its occurrence, which offers from the general order. The Constitution and basic laws of a number of foreign countries also do not recognize the human fetus as a subject of law. For example, the Swiss Constitution in Article 119 classifies embryos as germinal and genetic means of man. The jurisprudence of European Court of Human Rights also does not recognize the existence of legal characteristics inherent in natural personal from the embryo. In Russian jurisprudence, an opinion has been established about the emergence of legal personality of human embryo under the condition of its live birth. Based on Article 1116 of the Civil Code of Russian Federation, according to which the number of persons who may be called to inherit includes citizens conceived during the life of testator and born alive after the opening of the inheritance. Similar examples can be found in documents of other countries. According to paragraph 1923.2 of the German Civil Code, a person who was not born at the time of the opening of the inheritance but was already conceived is considered born before the opening of the inheritance. However, these regulations cannot be called fully recognizing the legal personality of the human embryo from the moment of conception. In science, there is another point of view. The embryo is a part of the mother's body, a human organ. It is supported by the practice of European Court of Human Rights. Thus, in the case of excuse me, Begemann and Scheuten vs. Germany court rules, the life of the embryo is inextricably linked to the life of the pregnant woman and cannot be considered in isolation from it. Russian legislation is also moving in this direction. An unborn child of the human or a human embryo, from the point of view of the law, is not a person. In the history of the development of medicine and the culture of mankind, the doctor attitude to abortion has become one of the first and main ethical and medical problems that remain relevant by this day. The main problem of abortion is to justify the moral admissibility or inadmissibility of abortion as a practice of interference in a person's life at stage of intrauterine development. The problem focuses on the fundamental issues of the human existence, on the solution of which the solution of many other problems of bioethics also depends. When does the person's life begin? Who has the right to decide for a person to live or to die? The definition of the concept abortion at the different times varied depending on the country, legislation, and characteristics of medical practice. In the medical sense, abortion is a termination of pregnancy before the term at which it can end in childbirth. Sir Stanley Clayton and John Newton, in the edition of the Pocket Guide to Obstetrics, define abortion as the expulsion of the fetus before the 28th week of pregnancy. The British law still adheres the same point of view. At the later edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica defines abortion as termination of pregnancy before fetal viability, as evidenced by the fetal weight of 1,000 grams and gestational age of more than 20 weeks. Ralph Benson, in Manual of Obstetrics and Gynecology, writes that abortion is the termination of pregnancy before the viability of the fetus. Technically, it reaches viability at approximately 23 to 24 weeks, when it weighs a little over 600 grams. U.S. laws vary by state in this regard. The law allows abortion at the request of the woman in the first trimester of pregnancy. In the second trimester, additional restrictions come into force, or rather the procedure is allowed only in case of medical indications for abortion. According to the World Health Organization, abortion is the expulsion or removal of fetus or embryo weighing up to 500 grams from the mother's body. According to the modern medical definition, abortion is the expulsion of the conceptus, means product of fertilization of the fetus before it becomes viable, which is indicated by the pregnancy of more than 20 weeks and fetal weight of 500 grams or more. Recently, In some states, the weight of viable fetus has been reduced to 300 grams. In ancient times, artificial termination of pregnancy was not considered a crime. Abortion was practiced in ancient Egypt during the Middle Kingdom, and during excavations in Pompeii, a vaginal mirror suitable for abortion was found. The first mention of artificial termination of pregnancy is found in Egyptian papyri. They are mentioned in the documents of Roman Empire, in the writings of Hippocrates and Avicenna, at the statement of Aristotle and Cicero. Plato believed that midwives can help pregnant women or make a miscarriage if one is desired. Aristotle point out that if spouses have children against expectation, then the fetus must be corroded before it has the sense of life and life itself. In ancient Rome, induced abortion was so commonplace that it was performed in city squares and markets. The Roman poet Ovid exclaimed, "In our time, few women bear all the children they conceive." However, since ancient time, medicine has opposed artificial termination of pregnancy. The Egyptian pharaohs Imhotep, who lived in the 3rd millennium before Christ and was considered the god of medicine, came up with an oath that all healers had to pronounce, in which forbade them from prescribing abortive drugs. At the same time, the ancient Roman politician and Augustinian orator Cicero spoke out in favor of punishing a woman who resorted to an abortion. A woman should be punished for expelling the fetus, since she steals from a republic the citizens destined for her. Pronounced the well-known oath of Hippocrates, the doctor solemnly swears not to engage the expulsion of the fetus, with the help of drugs, suppositories, or any other means. In ancient India, abortion was considered the greatest crime, since the child who was in the mother's body is not able to defend himself, and his life depends entirely on the mother. According to the ancient Indian laws, killing a man is a crime. Killing a woman is a more serious crime because she's weak. Killing a child is an even greater crime, and destroying an unborn child in the womb is the most terrible crime and unforgivable sin. The Bible considers induced abortion a crime, but not the same as murder. As moral compensation, the decision of punishment is made by the husband of the woman who had an abortion, the one who helped her in this can be punished by judge by flogging or imprisonment. The Catholic Church is the most strict in this regard. Back in 7th century, it adopted the rule of the death penalty for performing an induced abortion. In the Middle Ages, as the Christian religion spread, the view of abortion as a crime was strengthened. The Christian commander, "Who shalt not kill," also applies to the fetus in the mother's body. Laws for imposition of capital punishment on those who contributed to such a crime as abortion were passed by England in 1524, Germany in 1539, France in 1562, and in Russia in 1649. By early 19th century, the death penalty has been abolished in most countries, but the penalty remained hard for many years. The humanism of Renaissance changed the attitude towards the abortion and punishment for it. First, the well-known Italian lawyer Beccaria, in his treatise on crime and punishment, writes that when determining the punishment of women for abortion, one should take into account the difficult socio-economic conditions which requires mitigation of punishment. As prevention of abortion, the carrier recommends organizing shelters, helping fallen women who have given birth to a child out of wedlock. At the end of 18th century in France, during the French Revolution, a woman who had an abortion wasn't punished, and the person who performed it was punished with 20 years in prison. Attitude towards abortion and the historical aspect. After the Industrial Revolution and social upheavals of the 18th and 19th century, European countries gradually abolished these harsh laws and replaced them with less severe measures such as imprisonment, fines, and revocation of the doctor's license. By 1929, British law allowed abortion if the pregnancy should engage in health of the mother-to-be. Previously, the law allowed abortion only if the pregnancy threatened her life, but not her health. From 1929 to 1967, artificial termination of pregnancy without obvious medical indication was considered a crime and was punishable by the prison term, a fine, and the loss of license to practice medicine. In 1967, the British Parliament passed an amendment allowing a pregnant woman to have an abortion if the continuation of pregnancy may pose the threat to her life. If the continuation of the pregnancy poses a threat to her physical and mental health, the health of the family children, her own, her husband's children, or adopted children, and if the likelihood of fatal malformation exists. Abortion was supposed to be performed in a medical facility licensed by the Ministry of Health. The first country in the world to legalize on-demand abortion was the Communist Russia, where in November of 1920 a law was passed allowing the unhindered performance of abortion in Soviet hospitals. This led to the decline of the family institution and population decline. Stalin saw this as a threat, and in 1953 passed a new law allowing abortion only for medical reasons. Welcoming the law, the Pravda newspapers wrote, "Our Soviet women have been given the happiness of motherhood. We have an obligation to protect our family." However, already in 1955, the previous law was restored. Eastern Bloc countries soon followed suit to the Miro Reservation. From 30s of the last century, the liberalization of abortion law began in Scandinavian countries. In 1954 in Iceland, and in 1938 in Sweden and Denmark. Japan allowed abortion at the woman's request as a means of birth control, followed by China during Cultural Revolution. Real ones were adopted in Haiti and at the United Kingdom, in India and in the USA. By 1980, more than 70% of the world population lived in countries where voluntary abortions were legal or a subject of minimal restriction. Classification of abortion. In medical science and practice, spontaneous and artificial termination of pregnancy are distinguished. In the legal field, legally distinguish between the legal and criminal abortion means produced in accordance with the norms of the current legislation or violating it. According to legislation in force in our country, legal abortions are performed at the request of women for social reasons and for medical reasons. Jacques Sedor proposed to allocate therapeutic and eugenic types of abortion. Therapeutic is an abortion which is performed for medical reasons in order to save life or health of the mother. Eugenic is an artificial termination of pregnancy at the request of women or social indications. The greatest number of ethical questions arises in connection with abortion performed at the request of women and for social reason, because in this area, freedom of the person is to interfere not only in the natural process of human life, but also in a spiritual, social life of the person. The area of his rights and freedom is most manifested. Class a miscarriage or spontaneous abortion occurs without a medical intervention. Approximately 20-25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. About 90% of all miscarriages occurs in the first trimester of pregnancy. Sometimes it happens so early that the woman does not even notice it. The greater number of spontaneous abortion occurs due to complication during pregnancy or as a result of accidental injuries and chromosomal abnormalities. The symptoms of miscarriage depend on when the miscarriage occurs. If the miscarriage occurs in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy, then the situation resembles, of course, of heavy menstruation, and if at 12th week, then the easier version of childbirth. Spontaneous abortion is incomplete if placenta is partially or completely left in uterus. Abortions are divided into early, up to 12th week of pregnancy, and late, from 12th to 28th week of pregnancy. Medical abortion is produced in early stages of pregnancy, up to 7 weeks, by using 2 drugs, one of which inhibits hormones and the second removes the embryo from the body of uterus. Vacuum abortion allowed up to 8 weeks. The procedure lasts about 10 minutes and consists in the vacuum extraction of embryo from the uterine cavity. And surgical intervention by the age of 15 weeks. First of all, the cervix is open and dilated. Then the fetus is removed using forceps and vacuum tube. The delayed abortion surgical intervention occurs in 2 stages. First, the fetal heartbeat is stopped, and then, loosening the cervix, they remove it. Induced abortion performed by properly trained professionals using the correct technique is considered a safe medical procedure. The World Health Organization considers an abortion to be unsafe if it is performed either by an unqualified person or in conditions that do not meet minimum medical requirement, or both situations together. In addition, the scales of medical standard needed to perform a safe abortion are determined by the length of the pregnancy and the ever-changing state of the art. Complications of abortion leading to the death or disability of women are known to all specialists. Incomplete abortion, profuse bleeding, infection, perforation of the uterus, damage of the genital tract and internal organs when dangerous objects are inserted, such as probes, surgical needles, or glass fragments into the vagina. Dr. Gillibrand, in his book The Pill and Other Hormonal Contraceptives, claimed that the rate of induced abortion in the early 80s of the 20th century was 40 million per year, and only half of them were performed legally. As a result of illegal abortion, about 200,000 women died a year. Hundreds of thousands in abortion ended in serious complications such as various inflammatory diseases of the pelvic organ, frequent miscarriages, and infertility. As for the countries of Latin America, the predominantly Catholic populations lives here, and pregnancy prevention, with the exception of safe period method, is contrary to church dogmas. The frequency of illegal induced abortion in this region is 3 million cases per year. In the Iberian Peninsula, which includes Spain and Portugal, as well as other Catholic regions where a church condemns birth control, and even more, so artificial abortion, the frequency of illegal abortion is 1 million per year, the highest rate in Western Europe, and it leads to death of 3,500 women annually. According to the statistics in the capital of Philippines, Manila, 100,000 women a year have illegal abortion, about the same as in Britain. The population of Manila alone is 5 million, and the population of Britain is 55 million. In the United States, the number of induced abortions stabilizes after the legalization of abortion in 1973 and amounts up to 1.5 million per year. More than 60% of all induced abortions in the United States, Canada, and Europe occurred in young unmarried girls under the age of 20. About a quarter of all abortion occurs in adolescent girls under the age of 17. After spread of ultrasound diagnostic in China, India, and some other countries where was a tendency to have abortion if the fetus turned out to be a female, the so-called selective abortion. Unfortunately, these abortions are usually done in the second trimester of pregnancy in a legal manner and lead to the number of complications. Countries with allow abortion on demand. These are Russia, China, Japan, Scandinavian countries, Eastern Europe, Vietnam, North Korea, USA, and Tunisia, which has been the only Muslim country permitting it. Countries where abortion is legal with some restrictions. These are United Kingdom, Canada, India, France, Germany, Netherlands, Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, South Africa. Countries which only allow abortion for medical reasons. Catholic countries of Latin America, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Malta, Belgium, Philippines, all Muslim countries except Tunisia and Turkey. Unfortunately, in many societies, the birth control measure is not the birth control but induced abortion. The attitude to abortion at various religions. The Catholic Church adheres to the most conservative view regarding abortion. It strictly prohibits artificial termination of pregnancy in any form, in any time, because according to the tenets of Catholicism, the countdown of human life begins from the moment of fertilization. A fertilized ovum is equated to the person, therefore its destruction by any means is equated with murder. Some major Protestant denominations, such as Methodist Church, are more lenient towards abortion. In Islam, Muslims consider early abortion acceptable under certain circumstances. A woman who is less than 40 days pregnant by her lawful children is reprehensible but not forbidden to have an abortion. Some Islamic lower schools allow abortion in the first 16 weeks of pregnancy, while others only allow it in the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. At the later date, abortion is allowed only in 2 cases: if the continuation of pregnancy poses a threat to the life and health of the woman, and if the presence of serious congenital malformation of the fetus are proven. The Orthodox Church has a clear and unambiguous position of the issue on abortion, which is based on the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." There is no single Buddhist view on abortion. Some Buddhist monastic codes state that the life begins at conception, and that abortion, which would then entail the deliberate destruction of life, should be rejected. The issue is complicated by the Buddhism belief that the life is a continuum with no discernible starting point. Jews admit the possibility of abortion only when the development of pregnancy poses the threat to the life of the mother. However, reformist, reconstructionist, and conservative movements openly advocate the right to safe and affordable abortion. Ethical and legal aspects of the problem of abortion. Ethical and legal aspects are closely intertwined with the issue of abortion. The solution of such issues as the right of mother and child, the responsibility of mother and other people to the child, the right to artificial termination of pregnancy, the right of the child at the stage of intrauterine development, for life, health, and others. There is no doubt that the human embryo is not in a full sense an autonomous biological being, since up to a certain period for its development, the environment of mother's organism is necessary. With the development of medical technology, this period is increasingly shortened. According to the modern international standards in the force in obstetrics, a fetus with a weight of 500 grams or more is recognized as a child. This means that such a child can be born. Its further development can proceed in an artificial, man-made environment. The problem reflects an existence in the real life of people of contradictions between the right to life, of developing human embryo and the right of parents or society to interrupt the nascent or development life based on their own interest. These ethical and legal contradictions at this level of development of human civilization is not resolvable. Questions remain open, such as what right is the highest, the right to be born or the right not to be born? The right to protect personal secrets, the right to have offspring, the right to state to protect the health of the woman, or some other. In the scientific and medical aspect, the problem of abortion appears in rather contradictory form. On one hand, the development of medical technologies, including the development of the least traumatic and painless for modern techniques for performing an artificial termination of pregnancy, made it accessible and widely used in medical practice. Negative consequences of the abortion are purely complications, uterine bleeding, chronic inflammatory diseases, genital organs, possible infertility, hormonal disorders, and emotional and physiological stress. Pros aspect. Abortion is a medical operation. The embryo is just the natural neoplasm in the body of the woman, which under certain conditions can become a person. The mother's right to control her life, her body, prevails over the right of the fetus and unborn child. The right of the mother to choose according to her desires and need, they never are not to play the role of the mother. But there are cons aspect. Abortion is the form of killing of the person. It's so-called infanticide, committed not in the outside world, but inside the body of woman mother. It also permits to recognize the human embryo as a human. A child is the result of the fusion of germ cells of two organisms, maternal and paternal, as not exclusively maternal. The exercise by a woman of the right to dispose of her body violates the rights and freedom of the child who's inside her body. Constitution of Russian Federation, Article 17.5 states that exercise of human rights and freedom must not violate the rights and freedom of other person. According to opponents of abortion, a woman's exercise of the right to dispose of her body violates the rights and freedom of the child who's inside her body. Paragraph 2 of the article says the fundamentals, right and freedoms of the person are inalienable and belong to everyone from birth. Article 36, Fundamentals of Legislation of Russian Federation on the Protection of Health Citizen. Every woman has the right to independently decide the issue of motherhood. Artificial termination of pregnancy is carried out at the request of women with gestational age up to 12 weeks. According to social indication, the gestational age up to 22 weeks. And if there are medical indications and the consent of the woman, regardless of the gestational age. Carrying a pregnancy or having an abortion. For this, there are 7 days of silence. According to the Law on Protection of the Health of Citizens in Russian Federation, which came into force on the 1st of January in 2012, every woman who decides to terminate a pregnancy is given days of silence from 48 hours to 7 days from the moment of contacting a medical institution. This amendment appears largely due to representatives of Russian Orthodox Church, which insisted on tougher measures to combat abortion. It is assumed that in a week, a woman will weigh all the pros and cons of her decision and make a more deliberate and balanced decision to carry or to terminate a pregnancy. Given the rapid decline in the population of Russia, the policy of the state and the desire to influence the situation are quite understandable. Artificial termination of pregnancy is carried out within a framework of compulsory health insurance program in institutions that have received the license for this type of activity by doctor with special training. Fundamentals of Legislation of the Russian Federation on the Protection of Health of Citizens, Article 36. Each woman independently desires the issue of motherhood. Artificial termination of pregnancy at the request of women is carried out at gestational age up to 12 weeks. Artificial termination of pregnancy is carried out not earlier than 48 hours from the moment of the woman applied to the medical organization for artificial termination of pregnancy. Not earlier than 7 days from the moment the woman applied to the medical organization for artificial termination of pregnancy during the 8 to 10 weeks of pregnancy. Artificial termination of pregnancy for social reasons is carried out at gestational age up to 22 weeks and in the presence of medical indication regardless of gestational age. Social institutions for artificial termination of pregnancy are determined by the government of the Russian Federation. The list of medical indications for artificial termination of pregnancy is determined by the authorized federal executive body. Artificial termination of pregnancy is an adult who had been recognized and capable in a manner prescribed by the law. If she is unable to express her will due to her condition, is possible by the court decision taken at the request of a legal representative and of participation of an adult who has been recognized incapable in accordance with the procedure established by the law. Illegal conduct of artificial termination of pregnancy entails criminal liability established by the legislation of the Russian Federation. Reasons for abortion. 5 reasons why abortion should be legal. By banning abortion, you deny the right to choose for the victim of incest and rape. A human fetus cannot feel pain or survive outside the womb before 22 weeks. The social stigma of being an unwanted child has been scientifically shown to have a major physiological bearing on the adolescent. A woman has a moral medical right to decide on her body, especially as such decision has profound impact on her health and economic state. Enough scientific data exists to show that banning legalized abortion not only doesn't stop abortion, it makes the procedure eminently dangerous and puts the woman's life and her well-being at severe risk. These are pros for abortion. Public opinion on abortion. These are percentages saying abortion should generally be legal in each situation. 83% say it should be legal if woman's life would be engaged. 77% pregnancy is being the result of rape and incest, says that abortion should be legal. 67% says that it should be legal if the child would be born with a life-threatening illness. 56% says it should be legal and the child would be born with mental disabilities. 49% says it should be legal if the child would be born with the Down syndrome, and 45% says that it should be legal if the woman doesn't want the child for any reason. These are results of polls made by Gallup poll group. U.S. statistics says that average person seeking for abortion in U.S. in 2019 was in her 20s. So young ladies, young girls are already seeking the abortion. More than half of women were single. The list of medical indications for artificial termination of pregnancy is determined by the Ministry of Health of Russian Federation, and the list of social indication is determined by the regulation approved the government of the Russian Federation. Illegal conduct of an artificial termination of pregnancy entails the criminal liability established by the legislation of Russian Federation. Social indications for medical abortions in the Russian Federation before 2003 were following: death of the husband during pregnancy, recognition of the mother or her husband as unemployed in the prescribed manner, divorce during pregnancy, lack of house and living in a hostel or private apartment, refugees or temporary migrant state of the woman, having 3 or more children, the presence in the family of the child with disability, income per family members is less than subsistence levels, and lack of marriage. Social indications for medical abortions since 2003. The presence of disability of the first, second groups, of presence of disability of husband in the first, second group, death of husband during wife pregnancy, stay of the woman in places of deprivation of liberty, the presence of a court decision, deprivation or restriction of parental rights, pregnancy as the result of rape. There are also such terms exist called male abortion. Male abortion is presumed to be a right of the male father to completely abandon the child before 18th week of woman's pregnancy. In essence, this is a struggle for gender equality. There is a right of the man have long been humiliated. The young wing of the Swedish Liberal Party has proposed legalizing male abortion to equalize men and women's rights to refuse a child. According to the representative of the group, Mark Nilsson, if such a law is passed, men will be able to abandon the child during the pregnancy until 18th week of the woman's pregnancy. So this is a project. This is not the war already. On the ban of abandon. Now they are trying to present this ban as the withdrawal of abortion from system. This is an absolutely catastrophic story. We have already experienced it more than once. From 1932 to 1955, abortions were banned in USSR, which led to terrible consequences, to a huge number of crippled destinies. There is also official evidence that performed from 1936 to 1941, the number of non-medical abortions were enormous. of all abortions performed in the country, up to 95% were non-medical in certain regions. At the same time, the total number was approximately the same as before the ban. First of all, these are crippled women because all abortions were semi-criminal, let's say, amateur in nature, and led to severe complications, to the impossibility of having children in the future, and often to the death of the woman. Poland experienced in prohibition in abortion. What did the Polish law of 1993 led to, which tightening the rules of abortion? Abortion was banned in Poland in 1993. The parliament passed a law on family planning, fetal protection, and conditions for terminations of pregnancy. According to this law, a woman can terminate the pregnancy only in 3 cases. Pregnancy threatens the life of or health of the woman. Medical research shows that the child is likely to be born with severe irreversible defect or an incurable disease, which will endanger his life. There is a reason to believe that the child was conceived as the result of crimes such as a rape. Officially, there are almost no abortions in Poland. The institution of legal abortion of Poland doesn't work well. In fact, there are many more abortions. But how much, no one knows. The abortion ban did not improve the demographics of Poland. The ban of abortion is one of the reasons for abandoning children. Contraceptions, species, and ethics. Contraceptives have been used in all time, since ancient times, as prevention of pregnancy and alternative to abortion. As medical science developed, the nature of contraceptive changed: physiological, mechanical, chemical, or pharmacological. Existing methods of contraception are conventionally divided into 2 groups. The first traditional group includes rhythmic methods, so-called calendar method, temperature method, coitus interruptus, mechanical and chemical with local action. The second group of modern methods include hormonal contraception and uses of intrauterine devices. Birth control methods. There are 5 types of them. They are also shown at the following diagram. Modern methods of contraceptive. Hormonal contraceptives appears in 1960 and quickly gained popularity. This type of contraceptive, widely used in our time, allows to make such changes in the menstrual cycle that prevents normal ovulation and implantation, thereby preventing pregnancy. Modern methods of contraception, they also include contraceptive injection. The injections are considered to be over 99% effective. The duration varies from 8 to 14 weeks depending on the drug use. And typically used, they are rated at 94% effective. The injection do not interfere with other medication but may disrupt the menstrual cycle or even stop the menstruation altogether. After stopping injection, it may take a period of up to a year to resume the ability to fertilize. Hormone-releasing intrauterine system. It is considered more than 99% effective and lasts from 3 to 5 years depending on the type. This is a small T-shaped structure that is inserted into the uterus and releases the hormone progestogen. The natural health system considers intrauterine system one of the most effective forms of contraception available in the United Kingdom, but acknowledges that there is a small risk of infection when inserted into the uterus. Intrauterine devices, or the coils, said to be over 99% effective and can stay in a woman's body for up to 10 years, depending on the type of the device. It is in many ways similar to the intrauterine system. The difference is that it is made of copper and plastic. It is copper that helps to prevent pregnancy. There is a small risk that the uterus may reject the coil. It is also not suitable if the woman has previously had infection at the pelvic area. Bill Gates came up with the perspective contraceptive. The compact implant will be activated using remote control. The main thing is that remote control cannot be used by anyone except the hostess. One of the subsidiaries of Massachusetts Institute of Technology is Microchip Technology Inc. created the perfect contraceptive. A chip implanted the drug delivery system, inject 50 micrograms of levonorgestrel, the hormone used as an active ingredient in several types of contraceptive, into the woman's body daily. The dimensions of the device are only 2 to 1.5 centimeters. Until now, doctors could not offer an ideal contraceptive. All methods that exist today either have many contraindications or are inconvenient to use. The best one is a contraceptive implant with a hormone, progestin, that needs to be changed every 3 years and removed if the woman is planning a pregnancy. In contrast, the latest development of Microchip Technology Inc. slowly delivers drug to the blood, guarantees maximum protection against unwanted pregnancy, and most importantly, it can be activated at will without additional outpatient procedures. It can be implanted under the skin of the buttocks, abdomen, or upper arm. The structure of the chip provides to us several reservoirs for the drug, in which the reserve is placed for 16 years of continuous operation of the implant. In order to become pregnant, woman only needs to deactivate the implant using a remote control. There are also modern contraceptives for men. Hormonal remedies like drugs containing androgens and anti-androgens, large doses of testosterone that cause azoospermia, the sperm cells that disappear, and temporary infertility. The abuse of these drugs can be fraught for men, the development of tumor processes in testicles. Subcutaneous implants for men, ampoules containing androgens are implanted by the surgeons under the skin. Their weight dissolve within 2 to 4 weeks. Preparation containing cypertron acetate. These are oral contraceptive for men. Continuous use of these drugs lead to temporary sterilization and decreases in amount of sperm. After stopping the pill, sperm volumes are restored, but it is not yet clear how long men will be able to fertilize. Tablets containing estrogens and androgens. Such pills cause an increase in sexual desire and at the same time reduce the quality of sperm. You can use it for a month and then take a break for 3 to 4 months. The too long use of the drug side effect might occur, like mental disorders, decreased tone and interest in life. In 2019, the foreign press announced the start of research of male contraceptive, the Nest contraceptive gel. Contraceptive contains testosterone and progestin derivative. Non-sided reduces the number of sperm and they ejaculate. A small amount of the drug is applied to the skin and absorbed in less than minutes. Non-hormonal drugs include not only mechanical barriers to spermatozoa, but also drug active molecule
which are not hormones themselves and do not affect their secretion. No such substance has yet entered the clinical practice, but many approaches in the future may may prove successful. One of the terms, one of them is the effect of longitudinal muscles of the vas deferens. The contraction can be turned off, leaving only the circular muscle in working condition. As a result, erection and orgasm will remain normal, but ejaculation will become impossible. In experiments on mice, researchers were able to purposely disrupt the gene they caught for Gaspar, the ion channel of the sperm flagellum. Without this channel, male reproductive cell cannot move, resulting in sterility as reliable as their complete absence. Back in 1980s, the possibility of reversible contraception was shown for the drug iodine, although it turned out to be too damaging to the kidneys. Today, researchers continue to search for its safe analogs and have even obtained some very promising molecules. So far, all is too expensive for mass production. Another potential pharmacological class of non-hormonal main contraceptives are inhibitors of testis-specific protein, bromidamine. Bromidamine testis-specific protein. In particular, the GQ1 molecule, by inhibiting the bromidamine during the spermatogenesis, disrupts the formation of spermatozoa and impairs their motility. The result of this is reversible contraceptive effect without the participation of endocrine system. German scientist Clemens Bäumig has developed a device to temporary contraception for the man. He received the patent for his invention in 2000. The device, called Bäumig SLV, is being tested so far with only one patient, the inventor himself. Bäumig SLV is an implantable device made of polymeric material. Using a button connected to the device located under the skin of the scrotum, the man gets an opportunity to block the vas deferens and thus control ejaculation. Sterilization is a surgical operation which renders a person unable to conceive by obstructing the passage of egg or sperm. Tubal ligation is a surgical procedure performed to prevent pregnancy, which in fact turns it into full-fledged contraceptive method. Most often it is done on the initiative of the patient. Then she herself, or together with her partner, decides that she no longer wants to have children. Tubal ligation is a very effective procedure with an almost 100% success rate. In the past, cases of pregnancy after tubal ligation have been described, but these are very rare, isolated cases. Today, doctors can offer several methods of tubal ligation, but most often it is done laparoscopically or through hysteroscopy in minimally invasive operation performed by vaginal access. Most often, doctors recommend tubal ligation as a part of other gynecological procedure. Vasectomy in male. Vasectomy, the male sterilization, is a surgical procedure to cut or to seal the tubes that carry a man's sperm to permanently prevent pregnancy. It is usually carried out under local anesthetic, where you're weak but don't feel any pain, and takes about 15 minutes. Why is it done? Vasectomy is a safe and effective birth control choice for men who are certain they don't want to father a child in the future. Vasectomy is nearly 10% effective in preventing pregnancy. Vasectomy is an outpatient surgery with a low risk of complication or side effect. The cost of vasectomy is far less than the cost of female sterilization, like tubal ligation. Vasectomy means The men won't need to take birth control steps before sex, such as putting on the condom. Alternative to vasectomy, so-called plugs. Intravas devices or various plugs for the vas deferens are alternative to vasectomy, which provides reversible sterility. Two types of plugs made of different materials have already been tested. Some of the experiments conducted in China were even very successful. Out of 12,000 participants, almost 98% achieved zoospermia, although this result took from 18 to 24 months. Complications during the primary operation are usually few, and if necessary, the IVD can be removed under local anesthesia. Fertility is restored in approximately 85% of men, although this is a very slow process, taking up to 4 years. Barrier contraception without a condom. Intravas deferens or various plugs for the vas deferens are alternative to vasectomy, which provides reversible sterility. Two types of plugs made of different materials have already been tested. Some of the experiments conducted in China were even very successful. Vasagel is non-hormonal agent, and this is done of its main advantages are the not only existing method of contraception, but also those being developed. Vasagel consists of styrene alt malic acid dissolved in dimethyl sulfoxide. It is injected into vas deferens in the same way as RISUG, and after implantation forms a hydrogel which tightly fills the lumen of vas deferens. The attitude of various religions to contraception. Catholic Church takes the most conservative view of any means of preventing pregnancy. Islam permits temporary means of contraception provided that they are harmless and must be used by mutual agreement of the spouses. Orthodox Church. In 2000, the Bishop Council put out an official position of this issue. The position divides all the medical contraceptive into abortive and non-abortive. In accordance with the medical data, abortive are means that prevent the implantation of fertilized egg into endometrium. Emergency contraceptive methods that disrupt the ability of endometrium to implant. Non-abortive are the mechanical method, chemical and combined oral contraception. In Judaism, irreversible sterilization is forbidden, but can only be allowed in case of absolute medical necessity. In Buddhism, the use of contraception is permissible since it does not affect karma or influence is insignificant. Few aspects of reproductive medicine. Assistive reproductive technologies are a method of infertility therapy in which some or all stages of conception and early development of embryo are carried out outside of the body. Almost all known causes of infertility can be overcome with ART. The list of technologies related to ART contained in Order Number 107, Ministry of Health Protection of Russian Federation. These are in vitro fertilization, injection of sperm into oocyte cytoplasm, cryoprecipitation of germ cells, tissues of reproductive organ and embryos, transportation of germ cells, and tissues of reproductive organs, use of donor oocytes, use of donor sperm, use of donor embryos, surrogacy and artificial insemination with the sperm of husband or donor. Artificial insemination. The first method of new reproductive technologies was artificial insemination. Artificial insemination has been known since the end of 18th century. In 1784, the Italian scientist Spalessa performed artificial insemination of the duck, which resulted in pregnancy. All three puppies were born healthy. Later on, the Scottish physician Hunter forced right intrauterine insemination of the woman with her husband's sperm. Artificial insemination is a method of assisted reproductive in which sperm is introduced to the female genital tract by artificial means. The whole further process occurs naturally. The spermatozoa run from the uterus to the fallopian tube, where they meet the mature eggs that came out of ovaries and attaches to the wall of uterus and gives rise to pregnancy. Insemination are carried out near the time of ovulation. Previously, the introduction of sperm into the vagina was used, but more recently, the introduction of sperm into the uterus, the so-called intrauterine insemination, had been used more successfully. Intrafallopian gamete transfer, GIFT, and the GIFT is then eggs obtained by puncture of the follicles or combined the spermatozoa using the usual methods adopted in embryology. Then they are transferred into the test tube, but after that into fallopian tube. This creates natural condition for the fertilization of the egg and maturation of the embryo on its way to the uterus. Doctors do not control the fertilization occur. The transfer of female and male genital germ cells into the tubes is carried out by laparoscopy or under ultrasound controlled. Intrafallopian zygote transfer, so-called ZIFT. The eggs obtained by puncture are fertilized in vitro, and the resulting embryo is transferred into the tube. Unlike GIFT, egg fertilization is controlled here, so a strictly limited number of embryos are usually placed in the fallopian tubes. As well as GIFT, ZIFT is indicated for obscure infertility and endometriosis, as well as for male factor. But even here, the first requirement is the presence of well-passable pipes. In vitro fertilization, the procedure consists, in fact, the help of intramuscular injection of hormone-containing drugs. Several eggs are grown in the woman's body, which are then removed under anesthesia and fertilized to the husband or donor's sperm in a special laboratory dish, simply by placing each egg in a portion of sperm containing many spermatozoa. The process of penetration of spermatozoa into egg occurs in a natural way. A specific spermatozoa is not chosen for that fertilization. The eggs are taken out from the woman's ovary, not by surgery, but by much simpler and harmless procedure, puncture. That is the puncture of each follicle, which the hollow needle that sucks its content in order to subsequently isolate the egg from it. After fertilization, the embryos are grown for several days in laboratory and then transferred into the woman's uterus. All these 2 weeks, a woman takes progesterone preparation to support a possible pregnancy. Although only up to 2 weeks of the embryo in the body of the potential male, it is possible that a fairly large proportion to be sure whether you're pregnant or not. Surrogacy. One of the modern reproductive technology that allows young Russian couples to conceive and bear a child, even with infertility. Surrogacy is the artificial insemination bearing the birth of the child by the woman under a contract concluded between these women and the birth presence of the child. Citizens whose genetic material was used for fertilization. This reproductive technology is based on contractual relation. Surrogate children are born precisely on the basis of an agreement on the service for their bearing. At the same time, the children themselves cannot be the subject of these contracts. That is, the parent of the child are initially the owner of genetic material and not the woman who carried out the gestation, regardless of final results of the program. Such a contract is a new form of contract which differs from the civil law forms regulated by the Civil Code of Russian Federation. Most of all, such an agreement is similar to a contract for the provision of paid services regulated by Article 778 of Civil Code of Russian Federation. The peculiarity of this reproductive technology is that three people are initially involved in conception: the genetic father who provided the sperm, the genetic mother who provided the egg, and surrogate mother carrying the child. There are two types of surrogacy. Traditional, the surrogate mother is artificially inseminated to the father's sperm, then she bears the child, gives birth, and gives it away. In this case, the biological mother is a surrogate mother because her egg was used. Donor sperm can also be used. Gestation 1 is the in vitro fertilization method. Currently allows the mother egg to be fertilized to the father's sperm and embryo is placed in the uterus of the surrogate mother. This method, the surrogate mother does not have any genetic links to the child because it was not her egg that was used. It is possible to use a donor egg. In surrogacy, there are specific groups of women which are eligible for it. The fact is that domestic legislation in this matter is very contradictory and fairly at odds of judicial practice. So, based on the direct instruction of paragraph 9 of Article 555 of Federal Law, an agreement with surrogate mother can be concluded by potential parents whose genetic material will be used to conceive the child. A single woman who, due to medical reason, is unable to conceive, bear, or give birth to her own child. There are no other indication of person who can use the reproductive program in the law. According to many, this means that none of the other person can become parents through the reproductive program. Aggravates the situation and paragraph 4 of Article 51 of the federal law, which determines that only couples who have received the consent of surrogate mother and are married can be registered as parents. In fact, the law does not contain any restriction at all for the person wishing to use the services of surrogate mother. It is misleading that the legislation code does not fully regulate the process of registering surrogate children. However, the very judgment the only married couple who are married can use the services of reproductive technology is the fundamentally wrong. Surrogacy for the single man. Another controversial issue is the possibility of concluding a contract with a surrogate mother for a single man. Allegedly, due to absence of direct reference to the single man in paragraph 9 of Article 55, many lawyers argue that such reproductive programs are close to them. In fact, this is a stereotype born on legislative contradiction and gaffes, which were mentioned above. Such a judgment is erroneous, if only because the law does not provide for restriction on participation of reproduction program, not only by marital status but also by gender. The surrogate motherhood agreement must provide for compensation for medical expenses, compensation for loss of earnings, place of residence for surrogate mother during pregnancy, medical institution where artificial insemination will take place, consequences of the birth of handicapped child. Solving the problem of surrogate motherhood. Before planning a pregnancy, the surrogate mother and parents undergo a mandatory medical and legal consultation. They are explained their rights and obligations, the legal consequences of surrogate motherhood. The parties reach an agreement on what to do with the remaining embryos. Counseling should continue during pregnancy and after childbirth. All citizens should have the right to participate in the surrogacy program regardless of the ability to conceive the child on their own. The duty of surrogate mother is to transfer the child after birth to the parent customers. Basic concepts in the provision of surrogate motherhood. A surrogate mother is a healthy woman who is on contractual basis agrees to bear and give birth to a child for another family after artificial insemination without further claiming to be his blood mother. Conception occurs in a specialized medical institution without a sexual intercourse, with which both egg and sperm of the infertile couple and donor can be used. After the birth of the baby, only genetic parents acquire a full-fledged legal status with the corresponding rights and obligation. As for a surrogate mother, from the moment the child is born, her services under the contract are considered fulfilled. Its main task is to provide favorable conditions for intrauterine development, and if any have been created, then the woman's task is considered completed, regardless of the outcome of pregnancy and childbirth. Requirement for surrogate mother: age of 20 to 35 years, having at least one healthy child of their own, no more than 2 general medical certificate of satisfactory state of health, written voluntary consent, written consent of the spouse, if the female surrogate mother is officially married, plus will be a positive RH factor and absence of miscarriage, abortion, and the cesarean section. Please note that those who can be a surrogate mother cannot simultaneously provide the eggs for fertilization. Rights of surrogate mother include the right to maternal remuneration, subject of observance of all the duties assigned to it in the amount of stipulated by the contract, payment of all expenses related to medical examination and fertilization, payment for medical care related to the pregnancy and childbirth, ensuring full rehabilitation in the postpartum period, compensation for all expenses associated with the bearing someone's else child, and other rights stipulated by the contract. At the same time, the surrogate mother is entrusted with a list of duties, which as a rule include creating favorable conditions for the bearing a healthy child, regular observation by the doctor, and strict implementation of all his recommendation and prescription, informing customers about the course of pregnancy, providing customers with access to up-to-date and objective information about the health status of the woman and her child, and other obligations stipulated by the contract. It is possible for surrogate mother to apply for a newborn. One of the main questions that scares the potential parents is whether a surrogate mother can keep a child. Despite the very essence of reimbursable relations between genetic parents and the woman bearing the child itself cannot be the subject of the concluded agreement. That is, if obligation to transfer a child to parents is written in agreement, this doesn't guarantee its transfer. Registration of the newborn surrogate child as a married couple is possible only with the consent of the surrogate mother. That is, without giving such consent, a woman can quite legally keep someone else's newborn child, becoming his full-fledged mother. Such a position may be motivated by maternal feelings that have arisen in a woman, or by a desire to persuade genetic parents to additional expenses. It is worthwhile to figure out whether the genetic parents has the right to challenge paternity in this case. Of course, the law does not deprive them from such an opportunity. However, according to the paragraph 3 of Article 55 of the federal law disrupting the paternity of motherhood of the surrogate mother, the applicant is not entitled to refer to these circumstances. That is the only thing that will truly allow you to establish the origin of the child is a genetic examination. How to become a surrogate mother. List of mandatory tests for the future surrogate mother. These are fluorography, blood tests, determination of Rh factor and blood type, bilirubin, glucose, and other blood biochemical parameters, urinalysis for bad habits, hormone TSH testing, screening for infection, smears for the lateral urogenital infections, examination of the uterine cervix, conclusions of the state of health of therapists and psychiatrists, ACG screening, and endometrial and pelvic ultrasound. Problems of surrogate motherhood in Russian Federation. Due to the fact that surrogacy is a rather young branch of reproductive medicine, the implementation of such program is associated with a lot of problems, both moral and legal. Legal issues are the most important problems should be considered the implementation and inconsistency of domestic legislation, which is why mainly potential parents have doubts about whether it is legal to bear children by women who are not the genetic mothers. And if the fears of parents candidates are largely groundless, then the legislation really leaves much to be desired. Firstly, various legal acts contain conflicting or incomplete rules regarding persons who may participate in assisted reproductive programs. Secondly, the law regulates the procedure for registering newborn surrogate children rather vaguely. Thirdly, legally, there are no legal consequences for all for women who decide to keep the surrogate child. Fourthly, although the legislation contains an indication of the need to conclude an agreement between the parties, it does not regulate its consent, mandatory conditions, and other aspects. Ethical issues. At the same time, the surrogate motherhood faces a problem of public rejection and censure of this institution. Ethical problems are expressed in several aspects. In particular, skeptics fear that the practice of surrogate motherhood will turn children into some kind of commodity, the circulation of which will become free on market. Like those who can afford it, it will hire women who will be the offsprings. There is an opinion that reproductive program exploits the female body, which negatively affects the mental health, maternal feelings, and so on. In the religious concept of the traditional Orthodox Church, which believed that reproductive program injure not only the woman carrying the child, but also the child himself, who may experience a crisis of self-awareness. Advantages and disadvantages of surrogacy. Like any other modern institutions, assisted reproductive programs have their pros and cons. Among the advantages of surrogate motherhood are the opportunity to give birth to the child even for couples where partners suffer from infertility, the ability of genetic parents to avoid all the inconveniences associated with pregnancy and childbirth, the ability to maintain health if the independent birth of baby threatens him, financial reward for a surrogate mother, which will help improve her financial situation, the possibility of concluding a contract on gratuitous basis, and so on. There are, however, disadvantages, including the risk that the surrogate mother will refuse to give up a child, lack of guarantees of the possible outcome of pregnancy and childbirth, lack of guarantees that the child will be born healthy, imperfection of the legislation regulating this process, and so on. All this, surrogate motherhood remains one of the most common methods of reproduction for infertile couples in single citizen, which determines its important place in a modern society. Thank you very much. The lecture is over today, and see you at the next lecture. Goodbye.